New at 5:30, our weekly Power and Politics conversation. Our Tom Eschen sitting down with the heads of two state agencies to discuss the much anticipated master plan for aging and how it impacts affordable care in New York. Tom joins us now from Studio B live with tonight's segment. Good evening, Tom.
Good evening, Lara. Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. They're hoping this master plan for aging has a ripple effect throughout several industries across the state and people across the state, whether that's affordability for health care, housing, caregivers, and most of all, New York's most vulnerable. The thing about all of this is just a few days after they unveiled this master plan for aging, Donald Trump signed the reconciliation plan, which of course has its own impact on health care. That was a portion of what we talked to here as part of that conversation.
I think the big question some might have coming out of this is how is it going to make things more affordable when it comes, I know housing is a big proponent, it's a big pillar as well, but just in terms of the continuum of care and the world that this population's living in, how for you or me is it going to make it cheaper to be able to have my parent, my grandparents to live in a way that is going to support them?
So the MPA is really a starting document, as Dr. McDonald said. Our job was to facilitate a process. So that the report has just come out. Now it gets bigger, right? It goes to the governor. The legislature is going to look at it. Other state agencies are going to continue to look at things that are doable in the foreseeable future. We have a lot of uncertainty at the federal level, so this is going to be an ongoing process. But one of the proposals to specifically address what you were talking about is one entity or entrance place for benefits that people are eligible for. There are millions of people that don't take advantage of benefits. So I'll give you three just for the aging population. The Medicare Savings Program, if we can get individuals to apply for that, around $2,300 a month, we can put between $7,000 and $8,000 back in their pockets. You add SNAP to that. For the average older adult, the average benefit per year is $2,600, and then HEAP, Home Energy Assistance Program. Those three alone will increase the purchasing power of an older adult by $11,000 a year if you're low income. So that's just one example. On housing, governor's had a $25 billion 5-year housing plan, but we're a home rule state. You can't build housing, even if you have the money, if local municipalities don't change the zoning. So there's proposals in there as well, which is why it's so great to have Paul Byer, the Smart Growth Director, as part of the leadership team, because that's what the Department of State does, is they train localities in terms of their planning and their zoning, and we need zoning changes in order to build the 880,000 housing stock that the governor has put forward.
Yeah, of course.
So let me build on affordability as well. I think Greg summarized it really well, but here's an example. We need to find a way to make healthcare more affordable, right? You look at what's happening at the federal level. I'm not feeling the love from the federal government right now, but how do you make healthcare more affordable? When I look at nursing homes, one of the things you saw in the plan, people call this out. Medication aids in nursing homes. We're one of the few states that doesn't let a medication aid pass a med in a nursing home. That means we have to pay more nurses to do that. But how do you make things more affordable? Sometimes it's letting people do what they're trained to do and influencing scope of practice. But it's part of how you make healthcare more affordable. One of the things we need to be looking at very seriously in New York State is we have to find a way to help nursing homes and hospitals reduce their costs because there's less federal money coming.
Yeah, I guess that's the elephant in the room, right? I think this was released on a Monday, and 3 days later, or that same week, that the reconciliation plan passed. And now we have another budget coming, of course, in the fall. When it comes to the legislature, when it comes to the funding methods of this, whether that's incentives or whatever it's going to be, how do you wrestle with that? Do you think, do things change at all after you unveiled this plan?
So I think the annual budget process next year will be very interesting, a lot more dynamic than I think usual. I think when you really think about where the federal government went, which I think is just really interesting. If you look at the whole federal health policy, research at National Institute of Health was cut. Many federal agencies were cut. 17 million Americans are going to become uninsured. There's a broad-based attack on fluoride to protect our teeth, broad-based attack on vaccines. The federal government's health policy approach looks a little bit odd to me. Like, I don't see them heading in the direction of making anybody healthy again. I don't see that. What it really makes sure we have to focus on, and this is where I think New York needs to really focus, is how do we keep New Yorkers healthy and improve New Yorkers' health and well-being? This is where the annual budget process needs to really focus on, if there's waste, how do we cut it? If there's something we do to make someone healthier, how do we do it affordably, and how do we move forward? Go back to the scope of practice conversation. There's things New York can do to make scope of practice not leading the nation, but just like every other state. For example, a medical assistant giving a vaccine. We're the only state doesn't let that happen here. That's something we need to look long and hard on. It got some energy last year, but didn't get over the finish line. And I think where you get to with this is, how do you make healthcare more affordable? How do you make it lower cost? How do you get more people healthy? One of the things I want to focus on in New York State is, how do I get more people eating healthier food? Fruits and vegetables, real foods. If the food came from a farmer or a fisherman, I'm all for it. It's the baker I worry about. Because once that baker gets involved, they process the food a little bit, and that concerns me. But I think really a focus on eating well in New York and eating to be well in New York.
Well, this full conversation goes live first thing Friday morning. We talk about the emphasis on technology as well as the inclusion of diversity, equity, and inclusion in implementing these more than 100 proposals when it comes to all of this. So make sure to stay tuned for that, and stay tuned, of course, to our show Friday and Saturday night, too. Back to you, Lara.
Really interesting, Tom. Thanks. So you can scan the QR code right there on your screen and listen wherever you get your podcasts.